At today's Intelligence Forum's Who Are You podcast, we're very privileged to have Graham Evans. And Graham Evans was the Member of Parliament for Weaver Vale in Cheshire from 2010 to 2017, and in 2022 was elevated to the House of Lords. Now, I could spend an awful long time giving an introduction, but you haven't come to hear me. I think I've said that before. So I'm going to ask Graham if he would kindly give us his professional journey to where he is today. Graham, good morning. Thank you very much indeed for this, for coming onto the podcast. And what has been your professional journey so far?
Oh, well, good morning to you, Harry, and thank you for inviting me onto this podcast. You ask a very interesting question, and I've had to think about it because I come from a poor working class background, a council estate in South Manchester, built specifically to build the nuclear deterrent, which was Vulcan bombers and Lancaster bombers in the Second World War. So it was a working class background where everybody worked. And I grew up in the 1970s when Great Britain was regarded as the sick man of Europe. We had the 3-day week.
Yeah.
And I remember the lights going out in the house. We were an all electric house. So I remember that the frost was on the inside. So a little freezing box room. I remember the two general elections of 1974. And I remember somebody called Margaret Thatcher being elected leader of the Conservative Party. So I was barely a teenager, and I remember that, and it caught my imagination. And she was elected in 1979, so I became politically aware. I couldn't vote till 1983, but I suppose I didn't do very well at school, but I worked very hard when I came out of school, and I think I became what people unkindly refer to as yuppies, young, upwardly mobile people. I got involved in business, and I was pretty good at it because I worked hard. I got on well with people in business development. I was always aware. And when Margaret Thatcher, after 10 years, she stood down or was voted out in the 22nd of November 1990, I decided to do something about it and I joined the Conservative Party. I became an activist in Macclesfield, became a deputy chairman of campaigning. Campaigning was a very similar pastime to business. So I used to work hard in the daytime and I used to go out and about in the evening, knocking on doors and campaigning. Eventually became a councillor and decided to go for Parliament. I stood in 2005. I fought the constituency of Worsley in Greater Manchester. Unfortunately, Worsley fought back, but I wasn't put off because I did a very good job for 2005. I was very lucky to get selected in 2007 for the constituency of Weaver Vale, which was a fairly safe Labour seat. But I had a saying, Harry, if it is to be, it's up to me. And I worked very hard for 3 years and was very privileged to get elected to Weaver Vale, taking it from Labour with a 8.1% swing, which is highly unexpected. And I was very proud of that, the hard work and endeavour to take such a safe Labour seat. I worked very hard for 5 years, from 2010 to 15, to reduce my majority to 805. But the good people of Weaver Vale re-elected me. Unfortunately, the not so snappy snap election 2017 caught me out, and I lost by a significant amount. So I got back into business and was working in business, but I still felt unfulfilled. I wanted to still contribute to Parliament. It's a bit of it's a bug. The sound of gunfire attracts certain people, and I wanted to get back in. And I asked if I could join the House of Lords as a working peer. So I wanted to get in to be a working peer in the government. So I ended up in the government whip's office as a whip in waiting. So I was able to perform from the dispatch box in debates, questions, urgent statements, and the like. Unfortunately, I unfortunately, in July last year, the Conservative government was unelected by the great British people, and so I'm serving on the backbenches holding the government to account in the various bills that are going through the House of Lords at the moment.
And thank you for explaining your journey. I mean, one of the things I picked up, I mean, there were many things you achieved, but one of them was you were instrumental as a member of Parliament for Weaver Vale in the reinstating of the Halton Curve Railway. Now, that must have been railways are a major undertaking, clearly. And, I just wondered what economic difference you made in that achievement to the area, well, particularly to Chester and Liverpool, I gather. How was that?
Well, that's a very good question, Harry. You picked up on that. When you become a member of Parliament, certainly as a backbencher, I'd never stepped foot in Parliament prior to that, and you want to be a good constituency MP. Coming from Macclesfield, I don't know if you remember Sir Nicholas Winterton. He was an outstanding constituency MP, and I modelled myself on him. I used to support local community groups, and there was a particular community group called the North Cheshire Railway Users Group, and they knew the ins and outs of a gnat's backside regarding trains. I mean, what they didn't know about the trains in Cheshire into Manchester, into Liverpool, into North Wales, down to Crewe. I mean, they were just the business. And they were very well organised, and they were one of the first community groups that came to see me. And so they said, we have this oven-ready plan that was agreed about 20 years previously, called the Halton Curve. Well, Halton was part of my constituency. The curve is referring to the curve that goes from Frodsham over to Runcorn. And when I looked at it, it was the railway already existed. It was a relatively small amount of about £13 million to update the signalling and elements to the track. So I thought I'd chance my hand with the Chancellor of the Exchequer, George Osborne, who just so happened to be my next door neighbour. And I used to help George out with various things when he was busy in the Treasury. So I arranged to go and see him. Armed with this oven-ready plan and these wonderful people in the North Cheshire Users Group. And he took it, looked at it, didn't make any commitment, but was very happy to announce it in one of his budgets. And so this particular railway line was opened after I became an MP. This is how these things happen, Harry. It opened in 2018, and my understanding, it has transformed the commuters. So it's largely a commuter line from Chester, from North Wales, Chester, through Helsby, Frodsham, indeed into Runcorn, and therefore a good access into Liverpool, John Lennon Airport, and indeed into Liverpool itself. So a relatively small amount of money has helped commuters in that part of Cheshire. I was very proud of that, but it wasn't the only infrastructure I brought in, if I may add. There's also something called the Mersey Gateway Bridge, which was a £750 million infrastructure project. I also, for £5 million, got the River Weaver, Sutton Weaver Bridge reconditioned, which was a wonderful old-fashioned Cheshire lattice wrought iron bridge built in the 1920s. I got a new town centre in Northwich, got a brand new school in Sandymore, and I could go on. And the point I'm making, Harry, is that if you're a constituency MP that's comes from a business background, you can bring an awful lot of inward investment into your constituency.
That's all great stuff, and I think you're quite interested in economic history and the history of old industrial towns. And the next question I wanted to ask you is, what are your thoughts about industrial towns and the future of them and providing more opportunities for them to thrive? I suppose we'd call it the levelling up debate.
Yeah. The levelling up debate, in my time, we called it the Northern Powerhouse. So having George Osborne as my neighbour and Chancellor, he was it was really very helpful to have a Chancellor of the Exchequer in the northwest of England, because he latched on to the great cities of the north. which are greater than the sum of their parts, but we're not connected enough. So if you look at a map, if you look at Manchester, you look at Liverpool, you look at Sheffield, you look at West Yorkshire, we're not connected together. And then that's where High Speed 2, High Speed 3, and the Northern Powerhouse came together, getting the universities, the business community together to try and build or reinvent those wonderful town centres. And if you look at Manchester, Andy Burnham, Labour mayor there, has done a very good job, similar to his predecessors. So post-industrial cities can reinvent themselves, and I think Greater Manchester has a long way to go, but is a good example of that. Liverpool is on the way there. I think the key to it is having an elected mayor that can focus on that socio-economic rebuild. And those are the big cities in the northwest, but I also think it's also smaller towns, medium-sized towns such as in Cheshire, my old constituency, Northwich, Middlewich, and the like, where you can bring the public sector, the private sector, business, and academia together to rebuild those communities, those once very proud communities. Because when, Harry, you look at the town halls of these great cities up and down the country, you can see how the Victorians were very successful entrepreneurs, their civic pride, and we have to do the same thing in the 21st century, looking at artificial intelligence, how we can leverage that, look at high-tech manufacturing, jobs and opportunities and careers for all citizens.
I think, if I'm correct, you are the benefit of adult education. And how do you see the furtherance of that, and what needs to be done to improve that in your perspective?
Well, I had a terrible 1970s state comprehensive education, terrible. But I made up for it in my 20s. I did A levels. I've got 5 A levels. I felt I had to be successful. I needed to be educated. So at night school, I did my A levels at Macclesfield College in the evening. I spent 6 years at Manchester Metropolitan University Business School, 6 years to get a business degree. And then when I was an MP, I did a master's degree in international security strategy. Now, I don't say that, oh, wow, look at me. I felt it was important for me to keep up to date. I felt it was important, if I was going to be a member of parliament, indeed a government minister, that I was educated over and above my business experience. So I would encourage anybody who didn't have a great time at school, who left with few qualifications, you can reinvent yourself. Continuous personal development, I think, is what you call it. So always look for opportunities to better yourself from an academic point of view.
And your plans, almost my last question, your plans for the future. What other boxes are there to tick for you?
Well, there's a few boxes to tick. I'm 61. I think I've got another 10 years of active life. I'm in the House of Lords, albeit in opposition. I'd still like to play a full role from the opposition point of view. Lady Evans and I, our 3 children, are leaving home. Our youngest daughter is hopefully going to university, so we hope to do a bit of travelling. So when you say some boxes to tick, we have a bucket list, Harry, which we need to spend some time on. But she's been very supportive of me, because I spend a lot of time away from work through business and indeed in politics, and I do think she deserves a little bit of time on holiday. And so we have a plan to visit, we'll essentially do a bit of travelling, but I do feel passionate about where I live in Cheshire, in the northwest, and indeed my country. We have some challenges, and I'd like to still play, albeit a small role, in still making our country viable and successful and prosperous in a very competitive 21st century world.
Do you think there'll be time for another marathon?
Yes, Harry, I can say that I have recovered my injury, and I will be hopefully doing another marathon next year.
So, Graham Evans, Lord Evans, thank you so much indeed for giving your precious time for this interview. It's deeply appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Harry. It's been a pleasure.